Haivan Pass, one of the most beautiful roads in the world. The internet is full of videos of people traveling through this stunning path. It is gorgeous indeed, but it may be quite dangerous too. In this video, I'm gonna tell you a story about the 2 attempts that my sister and I made to get through this road, one of which ended pretty badly. I'll try to share everything in detail so that you are better prepared for the ride through Haivan Pass. Our story began in late February 2022. My sister Anna and I decided to have a long holiday in central Vietnam. Our plan for the trip was to fly to Hue, rent motorbikes, then go from Hue to Da Nang and then Hoi An. I'm quite an experienced rider, Anna is a bit less experienced, but by that time we had already done a few motorbike trips together, so we were quite confident about our skills. The first stop in Hue was just lovely. I really liked that city. I just posted a video about it, you should see the link popping up right now. But after Hue, we had a quite long journey ahead. We were planning to ride to the world-famous Haivan Pass. For those who don't know, Haivan Pass is the road that connects Hue and Da Nang. It's beautiful and windy, it overlooks the sea and the views are simply stunning. Vietnamese government has built a fast highway parallel to the pass, so that all the trucks and buses use that highway now, while Haivan Pass is used only by the motorbikes. It was first presented to the wider public by the guys from Top Gear, who made a special episode about Vietnam. Since then, Western tourists have been flocking to this road. It is beautiful indeed, but at the same time it can be quite dangerous too. It is full of sharp turns and sudden twists. You've got to be a rather experienced rider to go there. Our journey to Haivan started smoothly. The day was sunny and bright, a bit hot, but still manageable. The road from Hue to Haivan is easy and straight, but rather long. We first had to drive about 70 kilometers straight before we could reach Haivan. There were a few nice spots on the way, some mountains and lakes here and there. Haivan Pass was just there waiting for us. What was worrying me though was that I could see some really dark and heavy clouds further ahead. Their ominous appearance concerned me, and in hindsight, after all that happened, I think they looked like a dark omen, warning us against what we're about to go through. The clouds were not the only problem. Another issue was that my motorbike mirrors were malfunctioning. I just couldn't see anything behind. I tried to fix them, but nothing would help, so I just carried on and hoped that everything would be fine. What was even more concerning was that Anna and I took different roads to reach the pass. We were supposed to take a more picturesque road around the lagoon, but Anna missed the turn, which is why from that moment we were driving on our own. I was really annoyed, but couldn't do anything about it. Anna was already on the highway and she couldn't turn back. That ride was real nice though. The road was empty and quiet, with hundreds and hundreds of old tires lying on the side of the road for some reason. I couldn't really figure out what the locals were doing with them. The clouds over Haivan appeared darker and darker, while I was getting more and more concerned, because Anna and I were now completely out of sync. She was way ahead of me, alone on that highway, and I couldn't really do anything about it. I kept messaging her so that she would stop and wait for me, but she was on the bike and couldn't see the messages. The entrance to Haivan Pass was a bit tricky too. The first road that leads to the mountain is not the one that you need to take, it's the highway road. I was stopped there and told that Haivan Pass entrance was somewhere else. I was confused, but followed the instructions and eventually found the road. And so my climb began. The sun came out, which gave me hope that now, when I'm on the right path, everything should go smooth. But unfortunately it didn't. I finally caught up with Anna in the middle of Haivan Pass. She was in a really cheerful mood, she was running around, taking pictures, the views were getting really nice. But then we jumped on our bikes and continued our journey. I guess that was the second mistake. After 80 kilometers of driving, we should have taken a good 20-30 minutes break. When you're on a bike, heat, humidity, noise and dehydration do affect you a lot. The third mistake happened almost at the same time. Anna was driving first. And an experienced rider shouldn't be going first, that's the rule. I should have been leading her, but that didn't happen. She was going a bit faster than me, I was going slower because my fuel tank was half empty. These are the last shots that I made a few minutes before the crash. I was sitting there in the truck, trying to process everything that had happened. Our plan was in shambles, it didn't work out, and now everything had to be changed. Just a minute after that last shot, I saw a bunch of Vietnamese guys pulling a bike out of the roadside. It was Anna's bike. Then I saw her, she was standing on her feet, but something was wrong. I immediately ran to her, took off her headphones, her broken helmet. The crowd dispersed while we started examining her legs and arms. She was badly bruised and in pain. She was wearing full gear, knee and elbow pads, full face helmet and gloves. That saved her life, though even that was not enough to avoid serious injuries. Her wrist looked particularly bad, it was dislocated. Later we found out that her wrist was badly broken, basically in 4 fragments, and a very serious surgery was awaiting us. She had a bruised knee, elbow and head, but the damage was not too bad. Luckily the gear did its job. She sat down while I was calling for help. I stopped a lovely Vietnamese couple and asked them to call the ambulance. I messaged my friends informing them about what had happened to us, and then we waited. We waited for about 45 minutes until the ambulance arrived. They took Anna to the hospital while I stayed behind to take care of the bikes. The motorbike rental shop sent a truck to pick up the bikes, and then I could finally reach Da Nang too. Once I got to Da Nang, I started looking for Anna. I found out that they had taken her to the government hospital. They did an X-ray and delivered the bad news. Her wrist was badly broken and she had to undergo a serious surgery. But the hospital was overcrowded and they considered her case as not urgent and told her that we'd need to wait for 2 weeks until they had an available spot. That wasn't acceptable for us. We knew we'd need to look for another option. It was decided to keep Anna in the hospital under doctor's supervision for a night, and then the next day we'd decide on the next move. Later we found out that there was not that much of supervision. Most of the time she was left alone in the corridors of that hospital without anybody to help or even just give a painkiller, and I wasn't allowed to enter because of COVID restrictions. We made it through that awful night, separated, and the next day I took her from that hospital. A day after we flew back to Hanoi for the surgery. It would be a long and painful way towards recovery. Half a year later we decided to come back to Hai Van Pass. It felt that I had to close that gestalt. My sister's injuries had healed. She's a true champ. She worked really hard and eventually she managed to recover. Her wrist was getting better and better, and even though it was not as strong and flexible as before, I guess she managed to recover about 80% of its mobility. 6 months after the crash, we came back to the same spot. We first got to Hue, had a walk around the streets filled with good memories, and then we headed back to Hai Van Pass again. This time we decided to do it by train. My sister wasn't really in the mood for another long motorbike trip, but a train ride felt like a good idea. It was a public holiday season, there were not so many tickets left. We got the last ones available, and early in the morning at 5 a.m. we got ourselves to the train station. Our plan was to do the same trip that we wanted to do 6 months ago, just maybe this time without extreme motorbike rides. The train from Hue to Da Nang was just lovely. It was nice and relaxing, the seats were comfy, the train had an AC. It was a bit overcrowded, but that didn't really spoil the trip. The motorbike ride would have obviously given a more scenic view, but the train was a great alternative too. The train goes right along the coastline, you can see the sea, the forest, the mountains. It is really spectacular. The ride takes about 3 hours, just nice and easy. While I was sitting there on the train, I was thinking about conclusions I could make out of our ordeal. I guess I'll stop on top 5 tips that could be considered as life-saving. First and foremost, it's gear. Locals normally don't wear it, but it's their problem. Mortality rate on the Vietnamese roads is staggeringly high, and when you look at how the locals drive, it doesn't come as a surprise. I always wear a full face helmet, that's a rule. A fall at the speed of 40 km per hour can easily crack anybody's skull. My sister's accident happened when she was driving at the same speed, and that was enough for all that damage. Without the gear, the damage from the accident could have been way more severe. Locals and expats normally look down on it, but I think you should have your priorities straight. What is more important for you, the way how some random people will look at you or your life and health? Second point is planning the trip. If you're going with someone, you must discuss the route and know where you're going and when you're stopping. You must be in sync. Next point is related to planning, evaluation of the road and your skills. You need to know how long you can ride, what distance is attainable for you. Google Maps can be deceiving. A road that looks fast and easy from the satellite in reality can be super tiring and dangerous because of its quality or the number of trucks and buses. After doing a number of motorbike trips, I've learned to trust the locals. I normally try to discuss my route with somebody in the hostel so that they could give me their opinion. They're usually happy to suggest the most scenic roads or show a way that avoids heavy traffic. Trust me, there are very few things that are more annoying than driving alone with buses and trucks. It is very stressful and dangerous, and you want to avoid that at any cost. Another important point is comfort. You must feel comfortable and relaxed on the bike. Once you feel a bit off, that's when you make wrong decisions that can lead to bad consequences. So make sure you have enough water with you, your bag doesn't hang on your shoulders and doesn't make you feel tired, your sunscreen is on so that you don't get sunburned, your clothes is nice and comfortable, you're not hungry or have snacks and have enough fuel in your bike. If all this is checked, you will feel much more relaxed and will have an enjoyable ride. It is also good to have some emergency phone numbers in case if you need some help. Like normally I would have the phone numbers of a hostel and motorbike rentals at hand. Things happen and these people will probably first to help you. The last bit is traffic rules. Traffic in Vietnam feels really chaotic. Standard traffic rules don't work here. But there are some guidelines that will help you to survive on these roads. The main rule here is what is happening in front of you is your responsibility. What is happening behind is the responsibility of the driver who is following you. Vietnamese don't look back, like at all. Many of them don't even use mirrors, and traffic signs don't matter. If someone wants to do a sharp U-turn in front of you, it's your job to notice that. If someone wants to do emergency braking, you have to notice that. They won't even send you a signal. The second rule is, the bigger you are, the more rights you have. Literally. Always give way to big trucks and buses. Don't even think about competing when you're on your bike. It just won't end well for you. So yeah, these would be the main outcomes of this story. After that holiday, I did a number of long-range motorbike rides. My sister is back on the bike too. It was a very unpleasant experience, but we've learned a lot from it. And I hope that after this video you'll be better prepared for riding a bike in Vietnam too. Riding a bike is great, it gives you so much freedom and flexibility. It is great and fairly easy to handle, but at the same time you should be aware of the risks. So thank you for watching this video. It came out in more unusual format for me, but I felt that I had to tell the story as it is. I hope you found this story helpful and useful, and I hope that this story will help you to prepare for your future motorbike trips. Well, for now, this will do. Thanks a lot for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you soon.